Good morning, folks. Ben here with One Take Thoughts, also known as Wilderness Handyman. And today we are going to be talking about a book review. And that book is The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by William Shirer. So let's get right on into it. This particular book I read over the summertime. It was coming in on, I think, about 80 hours. So it was quite the big book. I will admit that I listened to it through the audiobook and Audible. And so my consumption of this book was through audio. But nevertheless, I took a lot out of it. And I really enjoyed it. It was memorable. It was just interesting. There was, just a lot of things to take away from it. And I just love to be able to kind of share it with you and just recommend it to some of the people who might be interested in it. Anyways, let's get into it. We start off kind of with Hitler, but we start off right in the beginning. How could you not start off a book about the Third Reich and Germany's influence in the 40s without starting with Hitler? And it goes in to talk about Hitler and his basically his rise to power. It talks about how he fought in the First World War. He suffered particular injuries from that war. He comes back and he's disgruntled and not particularly happy. It goes into his childhood. It talks about who Hitler was, and then it goes into talking about the rise of his party, the Nazi Party, and just the way that he conducted himself, how he became Reich Counselor, and how he decided that, hey, I'm not going to give up that power when he got it. And I don't think in foresight anyone would have expected him to give it up, but even back then I can't imagine that people probably thought, oh yeah, he's just going to give it up. This is kind of, and so once you get to this point, then you start seeing who Hitler was to us, who we know him as, which is this Nazi powerful leader, the Fuhrer, and just seeing him start to conquer different countries that are around him. He goes and he conquers Czechoslovakia, and he goes after these other countries, and it's bloody. And it goes in and it talks about all his conquests. It talks a little bit about warfare, but it's not a warfare book. It's not about all of his warfare accolades and his conquests and his general's conquests. It just goes into little bits and pieces here and there. There's a different book called Hitler's National Socialism. This is an interesting book. I haven't finished it. It's about a bajillion pages, you can see there, but that's very interesting to read that. There's also another book that's Rommel's, I think it's Rommel's Pages or something along those lines, and that's an interesting book as well. But this is particularly just a capture-all overview of the Germans' history at this point, from about the 20s onwards into the 40s. And as far as I can tell, it's done a really good job of just capturing all of these moments in history that just affected millions and millions of people, and ultimately billions of people. It affects us now. How it affected the Jews, how it affected the Soviets, how it affected the Americans. It talks about, it's not biased in a lot of ways, but obviously there is going to be some level of a bias. I can't say that anything is unbiased. William Shirer is an American journalist, and so he's going to have his take on it, and he's going to be pro particular things that maybe a different country might not be pro on. But I think that he does a good job at least capturing the history of this war. And this is a well-known book too. It's very popular among groups who study this type of history. And so, as far as I can tell, he was accurate in it. He was also a correspondent who was in Germany for a while, so he was able to see firsthand what it looked like, and so that's helpful as well. So anyways, that's kind of an overview I don't want to make this too long because I know that people won't watch it if it's too long. But so that's an overview of what you're going to get. You're going to get a capture all, eagle's eye, soaring through the German history at a decently deep level of about 80 hours if you listen to it on Audible. And so I expect that you'll read it in probably more than that. But, that's kind of what you're going to expect. It's very easy to understand. It's not like a lot of historical narratives. It's not difficult to understand by any means. And once you if you can continue to be engaged and you're interested in it, it'll be a very easy listen. And then, so for those of you who are on the fence about it and you're like, I don't know if it's something for me. I don't know if it's going to help me see life in a different way. I think that it's very eye-opening because you get to see what it looks like for a dictator, someone who is a socialist, and you get to see what the socialist policies actually truly bring about. Some people call him a fascist. I call him a socialist. And I guess you could call him a fascist, and I won't argue with you on that. But this is what you get to see: a modern day dictator, a modern day ruler of a Western country, and how socialism works. Okay, and it didn't work out great for him, by the way. Spoiler alert. So along those lines, if you want to kind of get a grasp of like modern day events that are happening and nowadays, you can compare a lot to Hitler and Germany back then, and you can compare it to nowadays, and I think that's helpful as well. And you can see, okay, this is what Hitler in Germany did, this is what Hitler and the Nazis did. How do I compare it to what's happening now? Oh, well, they are silencing people out in the streets. Oh, well, they are doing this or that. Oh, yeah, well, I guess they are trying to divide and conquer. They are blaming particular groups of people to gain power. I think a good example of just the historical understanding being important to understand a lot of today's events is the Reichstag fire. Hitler set fire to the Reichstag, which is recorded in this book. And it goes into talking about how he blamed his opponents, and ultimately that gained him a great powerful blow on to his opponents, and how that gained him a lot of control. And so I see a lot of powerful figures nowadays doing the same thing, where they take a particular event, and I won't name any, but they take a particular event and they say, this is our opponent's view, and this is what they did to us, and this is why you should not vote for them. This is why they're evil, even though the opponents that Hitler had did most likely not commit that fire. And yet you can see how things unfold. And so I think obviously if we're I think we are on the track to commit history again, to repeat it again. But at least you can understand what's happening and have a light and see that this isn't a very particularly special time in history, and that it's always been like this. Evil men have always tried to divide and conquer. Evil men have always tried to silence the opponents and the people who go against them. And evil men have always tried to gain total control. And this is nothing new. And I think that is one of the most beneficial things from this book. Would I recommend it? Absolutely. I would definitely recommend it. And who knows if in 5 years I still recommend it, but at least at this point in my life, I very much enjoyed it. And I guess I will give it a rating, which is 8 out of 10. And you could even give it a 9 out of 10, really. It's a really good book. There's parts in which it felt long, specifically on like the conquest, talking about like Rommel and these different people, but I understand why it's important. And so for me, I more enjoy an ideological book, but I definitely wouldn't say don't listen to this, just because it just is a capture all type of book that helps you to see all the little parts and figures of the war, and I think that's helpful. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.